Getting divorced at 32 wasn't part of my life plan, but then again, neither was finding out about my wife's affair through a baby camera. Looking back now, I can trace everything to that single purchase I made 6 months ago. My wife and I had what I thought was a great marriage of 5 years. We met at a coffee shop where she used to work as a barista, and within a year, we were married. Life was good, we traveled, built our careers, and enjoyed our freedom. But last year, we decided it was time for a family. When our daughter arrived in January, I felt complete. Nothing could compare to holding her for the first time. What they don't tell you about having a baby is how isolated you can feel. With no family nearby and just a handful of friends who lived across town, simple things like going out for dinner became major operations. We couldn't afford a regular babysitter, and honestly, we were both too protective to leave our daughter with strangers. That's when I had the idea to get a smart baby monitor. My thinking was simple. If we could check on our daughter through our phones, we could maybe grab a quick meal at the diner down the street while she napped. When I brought it up, my wife wasn't thrilled about the idea. She thought it was irresponsible to leave the baby alone, even for short periods. We left the conversation unfinished, but I couldn't shake the feeling that it would make our lives easier. My wife runs a small bookstore that my grandparents left me in their will. It's a cozy place just a block from our apartment, and I let her use it rent-free since I work from home as a software developer. She has 2 part-time employees, which gives her some flexibility with her schedule. One day, while she was at the store, I ordered a Wi-Fi-enabled baby monitor. I know I should have waited for her agreement, but I figured once she saw how convenient it was, she'd come around. When it arrived the next day, I set it up in our daughter's room. The camera was small, noticeable when the lights were on, but practically invisible in the dim light. A few days later, I had a list of errands to run. Just as I was about to leave, my wife asked if I could take our daughter with me. She said she was exhausted and needed some alone time to recharge. It wasn't the first time she'd made such a request, and I felt guilty for saying no the last time, so I agreed. The morning went smoothly, my daughter was peaceful, and I was making good progress through my to-do list. I stopped at a burger place for lunch, and that's when everything changed. My phone buzzed with a notification from the baby monitor app. Movement detected in the nursery. I thought it was strange since my wife rarely went into the baby's room when our daughter wasn't there. When I opened the app to check, my world collapsed. My wife wasn't alone in that room. She was with a man I'd never seen before, and what I witnessed next made me feel physically sick. I recorded everything on my phone, though it was the last thing I wanted to do. But some part of my brain, the part that wasn't screaming in anger and hurt, knew I needed evidence. The worst part wasn't even the betrayal itself. It was that they chose our daughter's room, right next to her crib. I sat in my car, shaking with rage, but I couldn't go home. Not with our daughter sleeping peacefully in her car seat. She was the only thing that kept me from doing something I'd regret. Instead, I finished my errands, moving through them like a robot, trying to process what I'd just seen. When I finally got home that evening, I made up an excuse about traffic and a long line at the post office. My wife bought it, and I had to act normal while feeling like I was dying inside. I waited until she went to bed, then spent the night sitting in our living room, replaying everything in my head and wondering how many times this had happened before. The next day, she noticed the baby monitor and asked about it. I casually mentioned I just bought it, not wanting to tip her off. For 2 more days, I carried this knowledge around like a burning coal in my chest. I couldn't eat, could barely sleep, and had to use every ounce of self-control not to confront her immediately. I needed advice. I needed to know I wasn't crazy for feeling this level of betrayal. But most of all, I needed to figure out how to handle this without letting my emotions take control. After those horrible 2 days, I decided I couldn't wait anymore. I had to confront her. I chose a Saturday morning, figuring we'd have the whole day to deal with whatever happened next. I let her wake up and have her morning coffee. No point in starting this conversation before she was fully alert. "We need to talk," I said, sitting across from her at our kitchen table. She looked worried and asked if something was wrong. I didn't answer directly. Instead, I started by telling her when exactly I'd bought the baby monitor. She just looked confused. Then I told her the monitor was already working when she'd asked me to take our daughter out that day. I watched her face closely, and I saw the exact moment she realized what I was saying. Her eyes went wide, and she covered her mouth with both hands. We sat in silence for what felt like forever before I asked, "Why did you cheat on me?" She started crying, trying to talk through her sobs, but nothing made sense. I asked again, and she just cried harder. When I asked who the man was, she completely broke down. It took almost 15 minutes before she could speak clearly. When she finally did, I almost wish she hadn't. "He's just a customer," she said, wiping her eyes. "He comes to the store to buy books for his." She didn't finish, but she didn't need to. I knew it was coming. His wife, I finished for her. I couldn't help but laugh, a hollow, bitter sound. Not only had my wife cheated on me in our baby's room, but she'd done it with another married man. The whole thing was even more disgusting than I'd thought. At first, she claimed she didn't know his name, but I pushed until she admitted it. Marcus Reed. I made sure to remember it. Then I asked the question that had been eating at me. Why did it have to be in our daughter's room? What kind of person does that? Her response shocked me more than anything else. "You didn't even ask my permission before buying the monitor," she said, as if that somehow justified what she'd done. That's when I lost it. "So this is my fault. Because I bought a baby monitor, it's okay for you to have sex with a married man against our daughter's crib? I'm the bad guy because you got caught cheating with some random customer from the store." She started crying again, but I felt no sympathy. The weight I'd been carrying for the past few days lifted slightly, not because I felt better, but because at least now everything was out in the open. I told her to leave the house. She tried to argue, but I was done listening. I needed her gone so I could think clearly about what to do next. A divorce was obvious, but somehow that didn't feel like enough. She hadn't just broken our marriage. She disrespected our home, our daughter, and everything we'd built together. The next few weeks were a blur of legal meetings and paperwork. My best friend Kai's wife happened to be a divorce attorney, and she took my case immediately. The video evidence from the baby monitor was crucial in our state. Infidelity still matters in divorce proceedings. When it came time to serve the divorce papers, I made sure they were delivered to her at the bookstore. I wanted her to feel the embarrassment of being served in front of her employees and customers. She called me right after, begging to talk things out, but I refused. There was nothing left to say. The divorce proceedings were intense. Her lawyer fought hard for the bookstore. It was the most valuable asset we had besides our apartment. But my attorney played it perfectly, emphasizing not just the cheating, but how soon it happened after our daughter's birth and the location she chose for her affair. Giving her the bookstore, my attorney argued, would be like rewarding her betrayal. The judge ruled in my favor on most counts. I got to keep both the bookstore and our apartment. She got our car, which was fine by me since she'd need it for transporting our daughter. We ended up with joint custody, not ideal, but I couldn't deny my daughter her mother despite everything. The best part was that I didn't have to pay her any support. Her infidelity, proven by the video evidence, played a huge role in that decision. But even with the divorce settled, I wasn't done. I still had two more things to take care of. First was Marcus Reed. Finding him on social media took less than 5 minutes. His profile was public, making it easy to find his wife's account. I sent her a message explaining everything, including mentioning that I had video evidence. She didn't believe me at first. They never do. But after seeing the proof, she was devastated. I spent an hour messaging with her, trying to offer what comfort I could. Last I heard, she'd started her own divorce proceedings. At least some good would come from this mess. The second part of my plan involved the bookstore. I waited a month after the divorce was final before making my move. I wanted my wife to think things had settled down to give her a false sense of security. Then I walked into the store one afternoon and told her she had 30 days to clear out. She broke down immediately, offering to pay rent, promising to be a model tenant. I refused. I didn't want her money. I wanted her gone. The store she'd used for her affair would no longer be her sanctuary. Today, the store sits empty. Her business's social media still claims it temporarily closed for renovations, but we both know that's a lie. She's called me multiple times, begging me to reconsider, but I won't. I'm already talking to potential new tenants. It's been 6 months since I bought that baby monitor. Sometimes I wonder if I should thank Amazon for their next-day delivery service. It probably saved my marriage from dragging on for years with me none the wiser. My daughter is growing fast, already trying to walk, and I'm finally starting to feel happy again. Yes, getting divorced at 32 wasn't part of my plan. But sometimes the worst moments in our lives lead us to better places. The store will have a new tenant soon. My daughter is thriving despite the split household, and I'm finally sleeping through the night again. As for my ex-wife, I heard she's trying to open a new bookstore across town. Good luck to her. She'll need it since she's starting from scratch this time. I know some might say my revenge was too harsh, that I should have just moved on after the divorce. But she didn't just cheat on me. She turned our daughter's room into her private meeting spot, disrespected our home, and betrayed not just me but another family too. The consequences she faced were her own doing. These days, that baby monitor still sits in my daughter's room at my apartment. Sometimes when I look at it, I feel a twinge of sadness for what was lost. But mostly, I'm grateful. It showed me the truth when I needed to see it, even if it wasn't the truth I wanted. And in the end, that's what matters most, the truth, no matter how painful it might be. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that subscribe button to help us reach our goal of 1,000 subscribers. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with friends or family who might enjoy it too. Your support means a lot. And if you have any thoughts, questions, or story ideas, drop them in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next story.